This is the second in a series of videos about screening the new movie I wrote and directed, Things Are Tough All Over, in Chicago this past October 28th, 2024. Things Are Tough All Over is a drama with comedic elements about a family struggling through the Great Recession of 2008. The election of the nation's first Black president, Barack Obama, is the backdrop of this family story. Here's the trailer. Nicole and Rodney have it all until the bottom falls out.
The signs were everywhere, but now it's official. We are in a recession.
I got laid off today.
Wait, what?
But as long as we have each other, it doesn't matter where we are. We can celebrate our anniversary in a cardboard box.
Might have to. So, why did I screen Things Are Tough All Over in Chicago? Well, mainly because the story is set there, and I also have friends and family in Chicago. In this video, I will break down how much I spent overall screening the movie in a big city like Chicago, and what I did to put butts in seats or get people to come out and attend the screening. What was the cost of renting the theater? That cost $1,200, $1,200 for renting the theater, actually renting a room in a theater for 2 hours from 7 to 9 p.m. And in actuality, I got the screening room for slightly more than 2 hours because I arrived an hour early to consult with the theater staff and do a test to screen the movie, like a few minutes of the movie, to make sure everything was working technically. So my actual rental was really for like 3 hours. So $1,200 basically for 3 hours. The rental also included director's chairs and microphones for the cast members and myself to have a Q&A with the audience after the screening. That was included in the price of the $1,200 rental of the screening room. The rental included an additional expense that certainly would not have occurred to me if I was not required by the contract that I signed with the theater to spend money on something that I, like I said, never would have thought of, and that is event insurance. The contract that I signed with the theater stated that I had to take out event insurance to cover any possible accident that could happen while I was renting the theater. And while I hadn't planned on spending that extra $300, in all honesty, that was money well spent. How did I find an event insurance policy? I simply typed event insurance into Google, and I'm not sure if that's the exact term I used, but just through a Google search, I found an online insurance broker that sells one-time policies for, one-time events like weddings, birthday parties, and movie screenings that worked just fine for the rental of the theater. The theater accepted the policy I took out, and that was perfectly fine. That went smoothly. Taking out that event insurance policy, that actually made the rental of the theater $1,500 for the night instead of $1,200. But taking out that policy gave me peace of mind because if an accident did happen, like somebody, let's say tripping down the stairs on the way to the concession stand to buy popcorn, if they decided to sue me, I would be covered and I wouldn't have to worry about it. So while I was watching the movie with the audience, I had peace of mind that if any mishap happened to occur, it wouldn't be something that would bankrupt me. Now, in the future, I am going to strongly consider taking out event insurance, but I would also strongly urge you to consider, if you're having an event like a movie screening, to take out event insurance because it's similar to the insurance you take out when you rent a car. It's very expensive and it may seem like a waste of money, but in the unlikely event that there is an accident, you can just walk away free and clear, and the money you spend is totally worth it. So, how did I go about promoting the screening and getting audience members to show up? First of all, I set up an Eventbrite page, which you can do for free, that enabled people to reserve free tickets. How did I identify and reach potential audience members other than the handful of friends and family that I have in Chicago? What I did was a simple Google search again of community organizations in Chicago whose missions align with the themes that the movie explores, such as empowering African Americans and other marginalized groups, people dealing with poverty, fair housing, and other social justice issues. For example, I contacted the Chicago chapters of the Urban League and the NAACP. I contacted these organizations by email, just a cold email that I sent out. I Googled the contact information for these organizations, went to their websites, and found the email addresses of the administrators and different staff of the organization. And I sent each staff member an email that introduced myself and included a link to the trailer for the movie and a link to the Eventbrite page where they could reserve free tickets. And because the story of Things Are Tough All Over centers on a Black family, I also contacted historically Black churches as well as Black sororities and fraternities in Chicago to offer them to attend the screening as well. And the members of one of those historically Black sororities that I contacted actually showed up to the screening and participated in the Q&A, asked great questions, and were very cool and supportive. So it was well worth the effort to contact those organizations. What I will say is, though, it made sense and ultimately paid off for me to contact those community organizations with a cold email campaign, basically. What I learned is that I simply did not get started early enough doing so, contacting the organizations. I started promoting the screening and contacting organizations about attending the screening about a month and a half before the screening. So I started in mid-September, and that is simply not enough time to establish relationships with community organizations or even find the right person at the organization who is the correct person who can kind of help me or direct me where I need to go to get people to come out to a special event like I was having. If you're planning on holding an event like a movie screening or let's say a play or something in a city where you don't know that many people or you don't know anyone at all, I would recommend starting no later than 4 to 6 months before the event in contacting people, contacting organizations, doing Google searches, sending out cold emails. And that may seem like a really long time, but it takes time to not only find the correct people, as I said, at each organization, who is the person who can coordinate getting a group of people to come out to the screening, but also it takes follow-up emails. A lot of times people may not even see your initial email because of spam filters. You may have to follow up with emails and even calls numerous times because people are busy. We all get dozens of emails and numerous calls throughout the day. So a month and a half was simply not enough time to get enough people to come out to the screening. The theater had 150 seats, and as I said in the previous video in this series, there were maybe 20 to 30 people total at the screening, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's great. It's great to have a group of engaged people, even if it's a relatively small group. But I could have actually filled the theater if I had gotten an earlier start on contacting these organizations and doing the necessary follow-up with the multiple emails and calls you have to send. You have to just be politely persistent in getting people to respond to you, even if that response is a no. Sometimes you just have to keep contacting people in order to get any kind of response. I'll reiterate, the earlier you get started, the better. In addition to cold emailing community organizations in Chicago, I also placed a couple of Facebook ads targeting people who live in the Chicago area and have interests like movies, social justice, and issues that the movie Things Are Tough All Over covers. And I haven't sat down and analyzed how many clicks and click-throughs and all that ad terminology that kind of determines how effective your ad was. I haven't had a chance yet or haven't gotten around to analyzing that report from Facebook about how many people my ad reached and how many people actually clicked on the Eventbrite link. So I don't know how effective that Facebook ad was. And the placing the Facebook ad, if I remember correctly, was about 20 to $50, reaching maybe a couple hundred to up to 1,000 people a day. But with ads, you have to reach as many people as possible because, again, it takes repeated exposure for people to not only get interested in something, but to remember, oh, that movie looked interesting. Let me go back and see if I can, there's some kind of way I can get tickets to it. So I think the Facebook ads would have been more effective if I had once again given myself more time to place the ads multiple times in order to reach more people and reach them multiple times. But again, I would have had to have raised my budget for advertising in order to do that. Social media is great. It enables you to reach people that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to reach. But a word of caution about social media, something I learned the hard way, is you have to be careful about using social media as your main way of reaching people. It should not be your main way of reaching people. That is why I also conducted a cold email campaign, because social media can be very fickle and not reliable. And an example that actually happened to me is that a couple of days before my screening, Facebook randomly pulled my ads and pulled a post I had done about the screening because I had used a link shortener. I had used the website Bitly to shorten the Eventbrite link because the Eventbrite link was very long and it looked very clunky when you posted it. And Facebook gave me this rationale that my shortened link was quote unquote misleading because it didn't have the actual web address of the Eventbrite page. It had a what they sort of called a camouflaged link. So be careful about using link shorteners because it can cause your posts and your ads to be pulled by Facebook. And just be careful about over relying on social media. It is so easy as a creative to over rely on social media because it seems like low hanging fruit. All you have to do is post something or place an ad and you can reach thousands of people. But social media is so tricky and there are so many rules that are beyond your control that you need other methods, such as emailing, such as even distributing flyers in person, that are more reliable than using social media. I would also like to give some insight about giving away tickets for free and the debate that is ongoing among creatives and other people who hold events about whether it makes sense to hold free events or to charge for them. Basically, what I did was I treated the Chicago screening of my movie, Things Are Tough All Over, as a special advanced screening. Hollywood studios do that all the time. They hold free advanced screenings for moviegoers in different cities to build buzz for their movies and to also screen the movies for critics. So that's how I treated this Chicago screening. I did not charge for the tickets because I was treating it as a special advanced screening to build buzz for the eventual release on streaming of the movie. There is an ongoing debate about whether consumers value free stuff. It would seem like a no-brainer that people would appreciate a free gift, so to speak, but the jury's kind of still out on that. There's a school of thought that people tend to value things that they pay for more than they value free stuff. They value those things, even if it's just a small amount, like $5 to $10, rather than something that they get for free that they'll just kind of discard. Author and motivational speaker Iyanla Van Zant recently spoke about this issue on her podcast, The R Spot. And if you've never heard The R Spot, I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's a great podcast about relationships and different issues that we all deal with. But in this particular episode of the R Spot rather, it's the season finale of her 2024 season. She talks about toward the end of the episode, she talks about how recently she had held a workshop, a free workshop, where 500 people had reserved spots, free spots to this workshop, this online workshop, and only 40 people showed up. So she said that a lot of times free can be the enemy of us content creators, meaning that we think we're going to increase attendance by giving away tickets for free, but it could actually have the reverse effect because if people feel like they don't have any investment in something, any financial investment, then it's maybe not worth their time. Similar to Iyanla Van Zant's free workshop, where way fewer people than had reserved tickets actually showed up. I had a lot of people reserve free tickets for my Chicago screening, and then only a small portion of those people actually showed up. And even on the day of the screening, I kept checking my email and seeing that Eventbrite orders were coming in, and that gave me a sense of confidence. I remember walking around Grant Park when I first arrived in Chicago the day of the screening, feeling really confident, like, oh, all these orders are coming in. The theater is going to be full. And then, people being people, they decided not to show up. Something that's great about Eventbrite that is not true of other services is that you get the email addresses of people who reserve tickets for your events. So I thought about emailing the people who had reserved tickets and sending them a reminder and saying something to the effect of, looking forward to seeing you at the screening and participating in a Q&A with you tonight. And then I thought that might come across as kind of creepy because people may not realize that the person holding the event gets access to their email address. So I thought maybe it's best to err on the side of caution and not send a reminder because that might kind of scare people off. But if I had it to do all over again, I think I probably would have sent out the reminder, and maybe it would have kind of alienated a few people, but it also may have reminded people to actually show up after they reserve the free tickets. So it's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. There's really no definitive way to tell if you should hold a free event or charge for tickets. It's something that just kind of has to be decided on a case-by-case basis. Something else I'd like to share that happened with the Chicago screening that hopefully will help you if you have a similar event, a movie screening, is that I ended up wasting money ordering recordable Blu-rays to place my movie on for the movie theater to play my movie on. And the reason that I ordered those Blu-rays is because the movie theater had initially told me that the external hard drive that I actually hand delivered to them the weekend before the screening, they told me that the external hard drive was not working and they could not make the file be compatible with their projectors. So they suggested putting my movie on a Blu-ray as an alternative way of playing the movie. So I ended up ordering these Blu-ray discs online, and the package actually never showed up. And here I was scrambling at the last minute trying to find some alternative method to screen the movie, thinking, oh my God, the actors are coming in from out of town. And, because I don't live in Chicago, I live in a different city. And all these people that I invited, what if a whole theater full of people shows up and we can't screen the movie? I got to find some way to back up this movie on Blu-ray, and then the Blu-rays never show up. And I don't know if the Blu-rays never arrive because physical media is very rare and hard to find these days. So maybe the company that ships the Blu-rays, they get so few orders that they're just kind of disorganized. I don't know what happened. I do know that they never showed up, and luckily I was able to get a refund. So ultimately, it was not a waste of money so much as a waste of time and energy and me worrying, oh my God, what happens if the Blu-rays never arrive or don't arrive on time, which is the worst case scenario that happened. But fortunately, the movie theater was able to get my external hard drive to work. So I ended up not needing the Blu-rays in the first place. But that was such a big waste of energy and anxiety. And that just goes to show that once again, it pays to start as early as possible. I would recommend having a physical, either DVD or Blu-ray to have your movie backed up on, but get that manufactured or do it yourself if you are technologically savvy like that. Make that Blu-ray of your movie or DVD, that hard copy of your movie, make it weeks, if not months in advance. So you're not like me scrambling around at the last minute trying to order Blu-rays that never show up. In the next installment of this series, I'll offer some final thoughts about self-distribution and how we indie filmmakers can maximize our chances at being successful. Success, of course, is never guaranteed, but based on my experience screening my movie in Chicago, there are steps we can take to increase our chances of success. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please leave a comment, share it, and subscribe to my channel.